Okay, welcome back to CE 528 lab. And today we are talking about the next lab, which is about how do we assign an optimum maintenance policy for pavement. And we make a couple of simplifying assumptions here. And those assumptions include that all the costs are being borne by the same agency or same entity. So here we have a shipping company or a company that ships goods from ports to warehouse. And that company owns the truck, it does everything. It maintains and controls the road from that warehouse to the port and the whole thing. So that's a simplifying assumption, obviously. And then what we are asking here, what we are doing here is that we have what we call a highway design and maintenance model, HDM. And there is an Excel sheet for the highway design and maintenance policy. And what we are doing with that, and I'm going to go ahead and open the maintenance policy lab here. So this is your assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And what this is about is under those simplifying assumptions, how do we make sure that we are maintaining an optimal repair policy? And repair policy means, when do we undertake a major overhaul of the pavement? When do we make sure that, okay, this is the time to repave those roads? Okay, so you have one road that connects the pavement to the warehouse to the port. Again, maintained by, all the costs are basically under the same thing. Now, obviously there is a very complex tool out there. You can find that tool, HDM 4.2, but we're not dealing with that whole complicated tool because we don't have that level of time and commitment. Maybe once we switch to semesters in a few years, maybe I'll go switch to that. But for now, we are going to just make a poor man's or poor person's version. Maybe I should change this gendered language here. A poor person's version called mini HDM.xls. And what does that file do is it has a structure of, it has different cost submodels, essentially. Okay, it has different cost submodels. Like, for example, it will have a vehicle cost submodel. It will have a construction cost submodel, a road maintenance cost submodel, and then there will be like a general data input area. And what that spreadsheet does for you, it's kind of like set up as I set up the lab one, the benefit cost ratio analysis lab, where we had a basic setup of the spreadsheet, but you had to know the mechanics of that spreadsheet to be able to get to the answers of the questions being asked. So you're going to do the same thing here, and you have to perform the sensitivity analysis as to what happens to the different submodels and what happens to the overall cost model as you make changes to that spreadsheet. Okay, so that's the idea. So the way you will do it is, you will, first step would be to read through this document when you start working on the lab, and then you'll take a look at that spreadsheet, and you'll try to play around with that spreadsheet and make sure that you understand all the mechanics of that spreadsheet. And once you do understand that, so basically what you will see is that if you try to fix the pavement too soon, if you want to do it very, very quickly, then you will have much more expenses on the roadway maintenance. Okay, but your vehicle cost submodel will go down because your pavement is always very smooth. So you will be able to maintain fast speed. Maybe you won't need as many vehicles and so forth. So your vehicle cost submodel would be lower. So it will provide a lower cost. But that may not be the optimal thing, because because you have to add all the different costs, right? So if one cost rises, the other goes down. You have to look at what's the relative rate at which the maintenance cost is going up by fixing your maintenance policy at that you won't even let the pavement quality degrade even a little bit, right? So then that way you'll be having very high maintenance cost, but maybe very low operation cost. However, if you fix that value at a higher level, or if you increase the speed that you want, the design speed, then your construction cost will go up. So if you have a very high design speed, then your construction cost will be high. And if your construction cost is high, then that would mean that, but maybe you'll need fewer vehicles in that scenario, right? So there you'll have to look at that interplay and give me what is the most optimal policy that minimizes some of all the costs. And then you can from there you can play around with some things, right? For example, if you are not the one, and I'm not asking you to do that in the lab, but just kind of trying to make this a little bit more realistic by having these different cost submodels that overall contribute to the aggregate cost. What you're essentially doing is that maybe this was a more realistic situation, then as a agency that maintains the road, maybe you won't maintain it at very quickly, right? Because you don't necessarily care about what happens to the vehicle cost submodel, because if, let's say, if you're Caltrans, you want to maintain some level of good pavement, but you don't necessarily care about even a little rise in, even if the vehicle operating cost rises a little bit, because you're not responsible for the vehicles, right? So these submodels allow you to see what might happen in a more realistic scenario. Okay, so that's something to think about as well. But again, I'm not asking you to do that. All I'm asking you is just think about what will minimize the overall cost, and how do these submodels interact with each other. So that's something that you're going to have to do. I've made available this maintenance policy lab, and I'll make sure that the Excel sheet is available to you very soon. And then once you have that Excel sheet, you can play around with it. But for now, make sure that you are contributing to your RAISE lab assignment. But once you get done with that, you can jump right into it. And of course, I'm here till 11 o'clock. So anytime you guys have any questions, feel free to jump right in. And with that, are there any questions about the maintenance policy lab right now? Anything that you absolutely need to clarify right at this second? Please let me know. So if there are no further questions, I'll go ahead and stop recording this.